Welcome to the Can I Get a Witness podcast. This is where you can hear some voices from the trenches that aren't allowed to be heard on more mainstream media outlets. In this segment, you'll hear three fathers whose children believe that they have reason to escape the bodies they were born in. These young people are willing to risk their normal, healthy development by ingesting puberty blockers and wrong sex hormones so that they can achieve secondary sex characteristics to fit in with the dangerous social contagion that has been sweeping much of predominantly Western cultures. Let's take a listen. Well, hello, gentlemen. I think that we should just go right on in. I'd like to start with, could you give us a little bit of background, what your story is and your involvement in this issue? Scott, can we start with you?
Thanks, Joey. Yeah, so my daughter, who is 16 now, thinks she's trans and first came out to us a little less than 3 years ago. She came out as non-binary and asking us to call her. Anyway, I don't even remember at this point. And then we're like, okay, we just sort of thought it was like a fad. And then I'd say about 6 months later, she comes to us and says that she's trans. Growing up, she was never a tomboy or anything like that, played with dolls, did everything. And she just always, I guess, been, popular, beautiful girl, but maybe a little easily socially influenced, maybe a little bit low self-esteem. She has dyslexia, and she actually, this is, we didn't really think about this, but we think it sort of, quote unquote, happened when she was recovering from surgery. She had some serious scoliosis. It's the curvature of the spine. So she had to get, she wore a back brace and nothing really worked, but she ended up having to get 13 vertebrae fused. I mean, she's fine now. The best surgeon in the world did it, but she recovered, she couldn't go to school for many months, maybe 2 months. So she was pretty much on the couch. And I think this is what happened. She was just sitting there with nothing to do, in pain, could be some post-traumatic stress, probably watching videos on YouTube of trans people or non-binary, and maybe I'm positive that's what it is. These people that quote unquote come out, these influencers, and they create this. I guess she just wanted to be part of a community. So we think that's kind of where it's stemming from. But it's been pretty persistent. But she's not like all in. This is why we don't think it's. I mean, there are some kids who at early age, maybe we're born in the wrong body, but this is clearly, to us, it seems like a case of just being influenced, and she wants to wear a binder and get top surgery, and we're like, absolutely not. I still call her by her given name, her feminine name. The kids at school, there's been like a debate what to call her at school. We're finally giving in, I guess, because there's so much it really upsets her when she's called by her given name. So we're going to let them call her name at school. And she's really never even told me about it. We're having that conversation this week. She goes to counseling once a week because it's just so strange that the medical community affirms that's the standard, and it doesn't get to the root of why you feel this way. Why are you unhappy with yourself? And if you feel that you're going to be, she must feel, I feel bad that she feels so sad that, or confused that if she becomes a boy, she'll be happy, which is clearly not what's going on. She's, there's, even if she becomes a boy, it's not going to make her any happier. So we're really struggling with, we're not affirming, but we want to be supportive and let her come to her own decision. But it's very hard sitting on the sidelines watching this. And she only gets a steady diet of affirming, these idiot influencers who are trying to sell merch on YouTube. And she doesn't get any of the D-trans, the people who experienced it and said it was, like in that book, the incidences increased, 4,000%. It's like it's a social contagion. It's ridiculous how kids how the medical community is affirming and making these life-altering decisions based on, a teen. You're an idiot. You're not formed until your brain's not formed until you're 24, 25. So it's a huge struggle for her, for her mom and me, and and that's where we're at. It's like she goes to a playbook. She goes, "Oh, I'm born in the wrong body." It's clear she's reading from a script that she's heard over and over. Maybe not a literal script, but it's so clear to us that it's not who she is. And if it was, we'd be embracing. But it's not. She's caught up in this craze, and we're being supportive. We just don't want her at least while she's under our roof and not of the age of majority, to do anything medically, altering. And, we're not going to let her get a binder, especially because of her back or anything like that, or hormones, God forbid, which is child abuse to me. But that's where we're at. So we're still, she's kind of all in, but she'll sign cards to family members as her original name. So it's not, it's kind of like playing. It's not, we had this one friend, we're still friends, who like, oh, maybe you should just embrace this, maybe it's her true self. And then I would say maybe 6 months after, their son decided to come out as non-binary, and their tune changed very quickly. So it's very easy to affirm from the outside, but when it's actually your child who's saying they want to, change their name and wear skirts or chop off their penis, it's a little different. So, until you walk in our shoes, don't give advice, is my opinion. It's beyond stressful, though. I mean, but I wake up every morning thinking about it, going to sleep every night about it. It's terrible.
Scott, thank you so much. Let's hear from John. What's going on with you?
So about June last year, I was checking my son's WhatsApp because we have to keep an eye on his phone. He's got history on the internet. And he'd said to his sister, who is away at university, that he thinks he might be trans. And so the next thing I see is she pops him in a WhatsApp group, and they are, they're much older than he is, and they're all very affirming. And it starts with, I've recorded the conversations, I exported them, but you see that these older kids, 20, 21 years old, are telling a 15-year-old what to do. And he's pulled all sorts of tricks to try and get blockers and hormones because he thinks it's a magic pill that'll turn him into some anime type girl. And he's actually, if anyone was feminine, it was me. My mother said to me once, you'd make a better looking girl. So I feel sorry for him. This is going to be, if he took estrogen, it would do nothing for him. He's a big, broad-shouldered guy. And he's if it hadn't been for the Kira Bell case, he'd be on blockers and hormones now. But he's tried all sorts of things. He's away at a boarding school. It's mixed boarding school. And so before that, in January actually, he reported his mother and I to social services for abuse. And so then there was an investigation there. I don't live with his mother. We've been divorced for nearly 10 years, but I'm about a mile away. And that was pretty horrific, and the school were involved and everything. And he tells lies. He just lies and lies and lies about what his parents do. And anyway, so that's one borough as we have it in England. And then there was, he went to the GP at school, who we think is slightly affirming, and said he felt suicidal. And I know I've seen messages sometimes from this kid who is telling him what to do, leading him on. And he then got himself checked into a hospital and sat and occupied that bed until he wanted the pediatrician to give him blockers and hormones. And he ended up, we had to go and pick him up and bring him home, and he wasn't allowed back to school. And, he really likes his school. He's felt that was a punishment that he didn't deserve. And that started off another social services investigation. And the investigations can do nothing for you. You're already getting counselling for him. We're a middle-class family. We can't avail ourselves of bits of the state that might be able to help us. They can't even offer you counselling because the counselling's all full up. And he's got a matron, the woman who looks after the kids pastorally in the house at school, is quite, I don't know, sometimes I think she gets it when I speak to her, and other times I see messages between him and her. They message a lot. She's a little bit affirming. She does understand that it's a bad thing, but yeah, so he'll be going back to school. She sorted him out a girls' school uniform, and he's messaged and told the boys in his year in his house that he'll be coming back as a girl, and he's got a new name and things. It's his second. No, it's his third. He's had lots of different names. And so the school are going to sort that all out. Even though, I pay fees for him to go there, but his mother doesn't want to rock the boat too much. The main thing is he has to be away at school because he's just a nightmare to have at home. He's a bit bigger than me now, and he's not shy of being violent. He needs to get his way. So, yeah, we are waiting for him to go back to school where he'll be a a 16-year-old now with a girl's name.
John, a question I have is, it sounds like, is this your ex-wife? Or
Yeah.
So is she affirming at all? It sounds like the two of you might be on the same page, but...
Well, she originally knew nothing about it. I mean, my kids have called me a TERF for years because I got put into this by a friend who said, this is just another way for men to hate women, was his summary of it at the time. But so I got interested, and my Twitter was, oh, hey, this is interesting stuff. I've had to stop my Twitter now because I lock down his internet as much as I can. It's really hard. But I found he had some secret Twitter account in his Steam browser, and he'd reported his mother and I to some trans journalist, our Twitter handles, and said, go get him. So I've had to lock down my Twitter and I don't log into it anymore. Yeah, but she's a little bit affirming in that she will call him by his latest name, but he's quite a bully to her. She doesn't see a problem with him wearing dresses. But the trouble is, he wears dresses that you wouldn't let a 16-year-old girl go out in.
What do they look like? What do you describe?
Like the Japanese anime, the really short little skirts and the knee-high socks. And he's got a collection of bras. Yeah, I've got a daughter who doesn't wear bras because she's non-binary, and a son who does wear them. And he when he walks over to my house, he has a shirt and trousers and things, and he gets in and he gets changed. So he puts on this white T-shirt that's quite see-through so that I can't help but see the bra underneath.
Now, you mentioned a daughter that's identifying as non-binary. Can you give us just a little bit about that, and what are their age differences?
So they're 5 years between them. She went to it's called a sixth form college that was quite academic. She had to get good marks to get into it. And this is sort of a pre-university thing. And she was doing a subject that was hard. And I got a tutor for her. And she said, I want a female tutor, has to be a woman. And a woman, Julie, a woman contacted me, turned up. And I didn't spot it. I'm not particularly good, but it was a trans woman who tutored my daughter for 2 years before she went away to university. And then after 2 years at university, she's changed her name and she's non-binary. But the thing for us is she has a boyfriend. She's very heterosexual and she lives with him where she goes to university. That she thinks she's totally swallowed the Kool-Aid. I mean, they have a grandfather who's now a grandmother as well. And he transed himself about 15 years ago, which I thought at the time, okay, well, whatever. I did click that he'd been bullied into it by people on the internet. Like I said to him, he had a feminine or masculine name. I said, well, you'll be able to keep your name. No. This is about a whole new identity. Okay.
So this is your children's grandfather from...
Yeah, my ex-wife's father, yeah.
Okay, interesting. Well, that's a lot to chew on there. Thank you. And Steve, can we go to your situation, please?
Yeah, thank you, Joey, for putting this together too, and thanks, John and Scott, for sharing. I think you see a lot of similarities and some differences too, but it's good to kind of hear these different things. So I'm married, happily married. My wife and I are actually being very closely aligned in terms of how we view kind of the situation. So neither one of us are affirming. I think it's important to say, I think we're all supportive parents. We love our children. We just want the best for them and the best possible care. And that's something I don't always think gets out there. Anyways, so we have 2 children. Actually, they're now adults, legally adults. I have an older daughter, it's 5 years older, and our son, who just graduated from high school this past spring, is 18. And he is the one who is having some of this. He's now been diagnosed with, gender dysphoria and wants to transition from male to female. We're relatively new to this in that he came out as being, saying that he was trans January of this year. And it was my wife and I had heard he was, we noticed some changes in him due to some of it was due to the pandemic. The pandemic's just been awful because of putting everything online. I mean, he had some issues in terms of internet that we had to limit it. We've limited that. He didn't get a smartphone until he was almost 17 years old. And so we've always been kind of cognizant of that because he has kind of almost an addictive personality gaming, and we very much had limited that. But it became almost impossible during the pandemic because all of his friends, you're not allowed to see him. It was all online here and where we're located. And back in the fall, winter, we're noticing kind of some, depression, some personal hygiene, but it's kind of related, we thought, kind of to the pandemic. But then we had heard him kind of sounded like he was having a very heated conversation by himself alone in the bathroom. And he didn't have his phone or anything like that. And my wife and I were really concerned because it kind of sounded a bit of a break in reality in terms, like he was hearing voices or something. And we have some, on my wife's side, the family have some mental health, some people have been diagnosed with schizophrenia. And so, we're concerned and kind of afterwards, we talked to him, and that's when he came out. And he was talking to himself. There wasn't anything there, but he was just coming out of a relationship, an online relationship with a older female that was online. And kind of going now and looking at that, that's where we think a lot of this stuff kind of happened, because she is in I don't know if she was trans, but they were definitely in a trans type community online. And looking back at it and kind of going to this one thing we had kind of noticed even before is our son in high school, he had some social issues, but he had friends, everything, but even started becoming more and more politically radicalized. And I was fine with that. We would, of course, challenge him and things on that. But it actually was a concern to me, not at this level, but I think that was even part of some of the way in to the community. It was kind of wrapped up in all that, because it's definitely a lot of politics and the trans and all that is all kind of wrapped up, at least for him. So one thing was we were trying to struggle to get him into therapy, especially in where we live. There's laws that ban, what they call conversion therapy. Of course, there's a big question on what that actually, how they interpret that. So as a result, if you want to get a therapist that would just do therapy, they really don't take them. In fact, we had our general practitioner who's been my son's doctor since he was born, told us recommendations like, don't tell him anything about the gender issue when you're looking for a therapist. Just don't mention it. Just focus on, he has some ADHD type issues. And so that's what we did. And, we got a therapist like that. And everybody else had no room or anything, when you did that. And so I think it's a really big issue. And then so his current therapist is even at this point trying to push him off. He doesn't want to deal with it because he kind of feels like, it was almost a little bit bait and switch, which is a little bit what was happening on our part. But we still, in trying to look for one here locally, we can't find one. We can find some, but they, to me, are not going to do therapy. It's part of the process. So that's been a big thing to kind of deal with, both my wife and I. And we've kind of struggled a little bit because our son is 18 years old. This is something he should be able to do, but he's actually not really, in my opinion, really capable of doing it. And he hasn't started any hormones or anything like that. He says he wants to. He has started trying to, change, buying clothing and painting his nails, which I don't really have a big issue with myself. I'm going to pick kind of like the battles to kind of fight, so to speak. He wants us to use pronouns, and he's change his name. My wife and I are both agreeing, so we're not at that point to do that. So we're kind of a little bit with him at a little bit of a truce. I think I've heard that from different groups been in, like, we just don't talk about it too much. We're trying to focus on things, keeping him involved in the family, trying to be productive, moving forward, making progress with his life. Unfortunate thing that kind of happened, we really pushed him to get a job, after kind of here as it opened back up, and he got a job, and he's been doing really well. It was a great thing, and I even saw some improvement. But then he got he has some real life trans friends that he can go shopping with and things. And I said, what is the probability? How unlucky can it actually be? But to me, it kind of underscores what people have been saying. It's like the statistics, the probability is, what is it? It's like, it seems so improbable. And so to me, there's a lot more going on. And that my wife and I say we kind of feel sometimes they're crazy. Can we ask the question why? What's really going on here? Let's try to see what's going to be the best thing to help people. Because my son's he's struggling with different things, and based on his history growing up, he was not an effeminate boy. I didn't even think he gone to dances and things like that. He could be gay, but even then, I don't really see a lot of evidence for that. And it's really been over this last year that this thing. So it's been a rapid type onset, I would say, type of describing it. I know that's similar that they observed for girls. So I think that's where we're kind of at.
So I would love to, at this point, especially with Scott having some limited time here, if you could just, now that you've gotten to know each other's situations a little bit, any kind of crosstalk, anybody have something that while the other man was speaking, like, whoa, please go for it. Did anything come up for you, Scott, when you were listening to these other guys?
It's almost comforting to know that, we're not alone. And I know there's a lot of this that goes on, but, it's like we're all living in like these bizarre, like alternate realities, like who would have thought like our beautiful children would want to be the opposite sex? And like, it's a bad dream. It's like insane that like, it just sounds so ludicrous. Listening to your stories and I feel your pain is just like, it kind of comes out of the blue. I think we like, literally, I was just talking to my wife. I think we personally know 15 kids who were non-binary, trans, on this spectrum. And there's just no way that is naturally occurring. It's clearly the internet. I can hear the frustration. I mean, it's, I'm angry at, I don't know who I'm angry at, but, for one, the medical field, who in America at least is affirming, which is insane, not getting at the root of the issue. And I also noticed, I think Joey mentioned someone was autistic and your kid has ADHD. So I think there's, this seems to, I guess my daughter has social anxiety. There's always like they sort of prey on vulnerable populations, and somehow this is a solution the kids feel, but it's obviously not. It's really frustrating.
You guys know what a goth is?
I don't.
So I went past what must have been a goth meetup.
Goth. Oh, God.
Yeah.
I'm a Cure fan. So back.
Okay. So
for emo, same thing. Yeah.
And emos, exactly.
Yes,
we're walking in the park a couple of weeks ago, and there was a meetup of goths and emos, and they were. You could see them coming in the entrance, and I looked around, and I thought, there's no one here under the age of about 33, 34. Because they're all a bit different now. They're trans and pride and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I see, just Scott, the same type of situation. We've kind of done an inventory too of our different, people that we know in the community, and about the same number. I think we came up with like 12 kids from, teenagers to early 20s. Interesting thing is, what happened to gays and lesbians? There's nobody in that group. We don't know anybody I think there's some of that in there, but now they're getting pushed to, you need to be trans. And the big thing is, and I think this is true when I'm speaking to my wife and different women's group, is that, you don't have to medicalize being gay or lesbian. The trans, it's hormones, it's different types of surgeries, things, and they're getting taught on the internet that these things are reversible, and it's not true. They have significant effects, and that can last with you, last a lifetime. So that's where I think that would merit a little bit more conservative approach. Let's check things out before you start escalating. And that used to be, I think, more of the standard practice, but that's really come down.
So I was just going to say, the detransitioners videos on YouTube, if you've seen any of those, they're harrowing. You just think they must wake up, age, late 20s, look down and go, oh my God, what have I done?
Yeah. Stephen, are you in a small town? Did you mention smaller?
Medium-sized town, 70, plus 1,000. But it's a college town, which also skews it a little.
Very liberal.
A little bit. Yeah.
It's interesting because we're like, because we're in a big city, but it's not, obviously.
Right.
Well, because the internet is obviously no boundaries. So that's why kids in all, small towns, big towns.
Yeah.
One of the common things that I heard from all three of you had to do with YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if there were any influencers in particular. Did it start to take you down a rabbit hole and look for specific influencers? And then, John, you had said that you were like looking at your son's, all of his WhatsApp stuff. So I'm curious about YouTube and influencers, and influencers. And then the other thing is what any of you have done in terms of shutting down access or not shutting down access. So you just,
there's a YouTuber called H Bomber Guy who is just someone who he's a middle-aged guy, and he does commentaries of video games, often quite old and obscure video games. And there's an organization in the UK called Mermaids.
Yeah.
So they had some funding cut because someone managed to point out to them, hey, these guys should not get this, I think it was lottery money. And H-Bomber guy did a huge, big, almost a telethon or something, doing a big session online with games, and raised lots of money and gave it to Mermaids. So he watches those, and he says, this guy's pro-trans, I'm going to watch his stuff. Mm-hmm. But there's no one actually sitting there saying, I'm having a wonderful, glittery life as this trans person, as far as I know. I mean, and when you talk about locking things down, mid last year, I had no control of him while he was away at school on his laptop. His phone, he had an iPhone, so you could use screen time. So I went and bought him, and I was just really worried about what was going on. I got him new phone number, new Apple laptop, and took them up to school and confiscated his current equipment. And sure enough, I almost feel like I got there just in time. But every website he looks at now, I can see. Somewhere I can block various things.
Does he know?
The school want me to take that off for him to go back in September. But I just really feel like I want to wait. I mean, myself at the same age, I was crazy. I had a car and a driver's license as well. I should never have had that. But by 17 or so, I was starting to get a clue. And I'm hoping that, because he seems more mature than I was at the same age.
Does he know you monitor?
Sorry?
Does he know you monitor his?
Yes, he knows.
Okay.
Yeah. And he has to ask me for permission for various things. And if he wants to use it late at night, he has to send me a request.
We've been trying to, my son's 18, so we're kind of at that. It's been really difficult. What do we kind of push on, because we want to keep him in with the family, as much as possible. And so we've been trying to look at other ways to limit that type of screen time. We do limit it as far as at night, just because it's like, hey, you need to have, adequate sleep as far as for your health. But that's been a huge, we had times where we get up and he's talking to people, 3:00 in the morning. And it's like, what is going on, And so we've been able to kind of do that. I want to say one thing, John, the anime has been huge. And I found that too. I don't know where that has kind of come from, but
even for girls, same.
It's in for the girls. Yeah, I know. Oh, okay. Yeah, I hadn't heard that, and I don't know how that's all come, but I know there's some of the different video games I've learned that's definitely been put in there. Even my wife does the spying as far as or the snooping. She gives reports to me. I get really kind of uncomfortable. That's one thing. It makes me uncomfortable, but at the same time, I'm glad she does it, and I support. I try to do other things, but what was I thinking here? But there's some games like Celeste is a video game that actually he got recommended from that. Is after we kind of had a little bit of a blow up, talking about trans and different things, and trying to be very rational. But he's completely irrational. This whole thing is irrational. But talking about the effects, and so then he went to the internet to go and get his cheerleaders, to get his influencers, to do all that, and a person on Discord has been a big thing for him. That's where a lot of the stuff as far as communicating. And then they're talking, go play this video game. Oh, it's trans friendly. It's like main character is trans. And I'm like, they're using video games to recruit or to that's where I struggle a little bit and wonder is there some evil in the world and evil like forces that are going, because that just doesn't sound right. It's not right to do something like that. They're very open about it,
So here's the question that I have, because we do know now that an awful lot of this is driven by porn, and a lot of parents get really surprised with boys and girls, and it doesn't matter what their sexual orientation is. I'm wondering if that has been anything that the three of you at this point, so you're not familiar with, and especially with you, Scott, because I know you've been in this for longer. Do you know if your daughter has been involved in any kind, whether it's consuming porn or
nothing? It's funny, not at all. I've asked. She's extremely at least we think innocent. I don't think she's ever had a boyfriend or a girlfriend, and she's absolutely adorable. And there's no my wife, we look on it. We don't really have any blockers or anything like that for the internet. But my wife sometimes will look at history, and it's basically YouTube and anime and like silly things. There's nothing sexual. It's bizarre. And I think it's probably more common because it seems like the trans and most of the people we know are girls wanting to be boys. A lot of them are like not asexual, but they're maybe seeing some of their friends who are like really liking boys and having boyfriends, and they're not having these feelings yet. So they must be like, oh, well, then I must be a boy, or I must be trans because I don't have like feelings for girls or something like that. I think they're conflating sexuality with like gender. And they're so young. They're kind of lost. So I think, but it's not sexual at all, at least in our house. And we don't think, she's not being groomed by, and it's just I think for her, I think it's just being confused and wanting to belong to a community. I think in our situation.
And what about for fathers with sons? Pornography, is that anything that's come in?
I mean, I've got it quite blocked, but I find that when he does get at something we would consider pornographic, it's furry porn, and it's on sites that do GIFs. So, it's not a porn site, it's just, it does GIFs.
Yeah, the exact same thing. That's what I was going to say. We haven't seen a lot of the, your classic internet porn type thing that was being able to see, but definitely the anime type, the different type fairy, the different creatures. I mean, my son doesn't want to do, they call, I don't like using it, but the bottom surgery stuff. Doesn't want that. Wants breast, wants hips, but wants to keep all the other stuff. And I know from Roy he has a healthy libido, type. And I think some of this is, from looking at it, it does appear to be some of the, maybe they call the autogynephilia type sexual part of wanting to be a woman, himself. And I mean, I don't understand it, but there definitely is some sexual, it is in part, I think, a significant sexual component there. I don't know how it got to that point, because my son doesn't really want to behave as a stereotypical, but he stereotypical woman, and he doesn't. Yeah. But he wants to have the anatomy is what we get, and be able to dress.
Was there a joke when you were young at school about, if you had breasts, you'd just stay home and play with your breasts all day?
I used to say, we used to joke. You used to say I'm a lesbian trapped in a man's body. It's like the straight. It was silly, but I know because he has a friend. One of his friends now, the trans friend at work, is a male to female, trans female lesbian.
Yeah, and
that's
and my son would be the same.
That's what they are, and yeah.
I've heard some people say it's lesbian porn, but I've never seen my son has watched any lesbian porn. And initially, I caught him at something when he was quite young, 13, and that was very vanilla, normal sex.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's hard because you've got this pipe that comes into your house, and just everything's on it.
Yes.
Scott, I don't know. I'm mindful of the time here. How much do we have you for?
About 10 more minutes.
Okay, so how about you give any kind of final stuff that you want to do, and if you can think of how do you see this next year, or even up through the holidays, or any of that, coming about for your family.
Well, I don't know. We're still also confused. We thought it would just sort of go away, but it's not. If anything, she's becoming a little bit more entrenched, and it's such a hard, we can't figure out, we're always questioning, where did we go wrong? And I know it's nothing we did or didn't do, at least we think. And it's really hard for the mom too, because, and I would imagine it's harder for the dads in your situations, because she's like, well, do we not say she was pretty enough? Or because growing up, do we not affirm her feminine side? Because, little girls, you're not supposed to say how pretty they are. You're supposed to say how smart they are. So we didn't do a lot of that beauty kind of thing. So it's, we keep thinking it's going to go away, but it's not. If anything, it's going the opposite direction. It's almost 3 years now. So, it's very, we're getting a little sad about it. And, we just can't imagine, we just cleaned out our garage and looked through old pictures, and we see these, pictures of this joyful little girl. and we can't figure why, she would want to be a gross boy. And, especially for a kid who's like, who tries hard to fit in, this is really a weird way to stand out, I guess. Not weird, but it's it doesn't, it's very counter to, quote unquote, normal culture. It's a very odd path to take. You really do stand out, and you'd be part of, I guess, a very small community. Anyway, I don't know where I'm going with this. We still go to counseling with her, and sometimes, and, we're just trying to understand, but we want to leave the door open for her to come back, but we don't want to like screw up her, self-worth now by, we're not, I feel like just shaking her and say, like, this is ridiculous. What are you doing? These people on the internet have no concern over you, or they don't care about you. We do. And, just getting fed a steady diet of what, recommended next video, you're not seeing the whole picture. She still hasn't come out to our family. And so we're just sort of laying low. The only thing that would really put our foot down is nothing medical. And we're still trying to keep touch with old friends, but it's hard, like her older friends, knew this cute little girl, and now they have less in common. So it's, I don't know what's happening. We still see family and friends, and she still goes by her original name. So, we still have some hope out there, but, it's getting a little sad, I guess. We miss our little girl. So
sure.
That is all. We're just, kind of playing it by ear, I guess. What else? And we had a psychologist who was not affirming, so that's good, but ungodly expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah, $250 an hour. So it heads up. Yeah, like having another car, two cars.
It's become another business too. Somebody mentioned about life coaching, I think, early on in this conversation, and I know 3 people besides myself who've talked about that, because it's a legal means to be able to have and ask certain questions just to get this contagion, this social contagion, maybe tempered just a bit, to stall that, to let them stay through puberty or something.
And I think people that affirm do it with good intentions. I mean, like other adults, not people in the community, but like other adults, like, oh, well, let your kid be who they are, but they just don't know.
It's when you have one of your own, that's when you really know.
It's different than like coming out as gay or lesbian. That is, I think, much different. It's a whole different psychology, I think, behind it.
Coming out as gay or lesbian it means that you actually have to identify with your body. And this whole thing is, trans is becoming kind of old-fashioned now, Non-binary is the next step. And now we've got one that is even more horrific, called nullification. It literally is nullifying that you have anything. But that's the thing, is when we're looking at this medicalization and becoming a lifelong medical patient, all of this is being driven by a massive campaign that's been decades long in the making.
I hate to leave on that note, but I got to run. The traffic is. But you guys understand. Sorry about that. I tried to reschedule, but I couldn't. So it was great. Sorry, guys. I really got to run. It was great seeing you guys. Sorry, you're all struggling. You're not alone. It sucks. It's like, it's like we're living in the bizarro world. It's hopefully gonna get better, and I'm sorry that our kids are, smack in the middle of it. So, Joey, thank you for doing what you're doing.
Follow up with you. Thank you, Scott.
Right, thanks.
Thank you, Scott.
Okay. Bye, guys.
Cheers, Scott.
Cheers.
Yeah, it's a tough one as far as like you're saying, Joey. In terms of, and I've struggled with this. Thinking about. We have so many conspiracy things that go on, but there are things that are actually, there is evidence that's not, if there's evidence, it's not just made up type of conspiracy. And I definitely see it in terms of the different activists and stuff, how they've been able to push through different types of changes to guidelines, and it's just completely counter to what I would say is good science. I don't really see the science. And my background, I can read the papers and stuff, and have some level of discernment in terms of some of the quality. And it's just not there. And but that's the frustrating part about this in general, not just dealing with, I think, our sons or daughters, is that this irrationality isn't just there, it's with the whole system. and that you're not allowed to have a rational discussion, because there are some, like I say here, if you eliminate biological sex, there are some big ramifications, and we've already seen them. And what is that? You're reorganizing society, which I'm not absolutely opposed to doing things. I'm open to change, but this is change that I don't think is actually helping people. And that's ultimately what it comes down to. Is I know people that are trans, they are struggling with some issues. They have some significant, and they need help. But what should that help be? And I think it's not just a one size fits all. I think there's actually a lot of different causes and reasons why people go into that. And there may be a small fraction, like I say, that really do need to transition, medically. But it's not I don't believe that the evidence is there that for the numbers that we're seeing now.
So that's something I'd like to explore. And you are both liberal dads. Mm-hmm. Am I correct that you wouldn't have been flipped out if your son said that they thought they were maybe gay?
My son, that was the first thing he said years ago. He said, I'm bisexual. I said, okay, whatever.
You're absolutely right. I mean, in terms of, I would have accepted that. And, I don't totally understand it, but it definitely, I can understand it. And again, it's that part of the thing, being gay, being lesbian, it's not a medical condition, we're here going to trans. It's like, we have to go you have to go puberty blockers. You have to have hormones, different things. It's like, no, I don't buy that. I don't buy that. And I would maybe say here just a little bit when you're talking, about is there a small fraction is like a true trans population? I don't really believe that anybody is born in the wrong body. I don't believe that. I am willing to accept as being liberal, or even like socially liberal, and letting people I can see somebody who's much older, maybe like 30, once they've kind of developed and they got to this thing, and if that can make it to where they feel better doing it and they've explored the different things, I'm okay. I don't totally understand it. The trouble with that
is that they get together. So this is what happened. Many years ago, you had men doing this. They got together and they looked at one another and they compared. And they said, who passed best? Because that's what we're all about, passing.
Yes.
You passed better than me, And then they sit there and go, it's because we went through puberty.
Yes.
Boy. And that's why we'll never pass and things. And
yes.
No wonder. And there is where trans children were born. They said, I've always thought I was a woman, but
I totally agree with you as far as that. I've seen that.
They have needed this. It's almost like they're vampires feeding off little children.
Yeah.
The trans children must exist for them to be validated.
Yeah. I can see
There's
that.
The manufacturing of the concept. It used to be that if you said you were the opposite sex, you had to start living your life socially as the opposite sex. But then you look at that and go, socially, well, what does that mean? I mean, women have been able to wear pants now for a number of years. So big deal. Your wives wear pants every once in a while. It's like, then we're getting into clothing. Then we're getting into presentation. And we're getting into... Yes. How does something, how do you present? And there's the costume idea. There's the costume, which became happening in anime and all that stuff. But now, if a man, especially if he's indicated anything about his sexuality and he's talked about being heterosexual, and you think that that's a thing, very different to want to put on little girls' clothing specifically, which is very highly sexualized.
Yes.
And then those are the guys that tend to be the ones all of a sudden they want to wear the super short skirt. You got to see my bra. I'm definitely rebelling. Here I'm doing this thing, but I'm sexualizing myself the way that women can have always had pretty much a license to do in society in a way. In that way, they've become the most aggressive, violent, angry.
Yeah. That's what I'm scared and worried about.
My wife, like I was saying here, and I appreciate you talking about Joey in terms of presentation, because we've evolved a lot. My mother wore dresses and stuff, and and of course then 70s, 80s came and changed, and my wife, she wears pretty much jeans and a t-shirt. She has short haircut. Actually,
and she's not a lesbian.
She's not a lesbian. And, she's had short hair, long hair. I mean, it's called style. It's called fashion. And the idea that just how you have your haircut makes you less of a woman, in terms of how you present, it just really sits wrong with me. And it's things we've been trying to fight against, because I have an older daughter, his older sister, and fought for her to have opportunities of things. So she's not pigeonholed into these. I mean, if she wants to wear a dress and do anything, it's great. If she doesn't, that's great too. It's that really is the presentation and stuff, where that's a social construction. But what we are biologically, that's
my son has decided he's a football fan, and he's followed this big Premiership football team, and he keeps getting tickets to go and see things at the stadium. And I'm wondering, how is he getting this? And of course, he's registered with them as a girl, and he's getting you see all that stuff to try and get girls into football. He's claiming their tickets.
So that he can go for free? Is that what the deal is?
They're free things. They're trying to get women more into football.
It's a way to get so he's taking advantage.
Yeah.
Yes.
I gotcha.
Totally.
Yeah.
And the football club is very trans friendly as well. They have a flag in the corner.
Oh yeah. That's definitely.
Oh my goodness. Oh.
Yeah. One of the ones that's disturbing, we're just kind of talking the different things that, and like I say, this is my wife has been able to kind of see things and I won't get into too much details, but my son, in looking at some things, he had wanted to go, and basically there's a sexual, we think, type like experience that you have in terms of being out in public, appearing or passing as a woman that is sexualized.
Yeah.
And then being able to, and so wanting, that's what it prompted me when you're talking about going to a football game, or I'm thinking of other types of situation. It's like, wanting people to see you. And I know I've listened to some of the one I'm so bad here remembering names, but there's a gender, wider
lens.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. Stella, she was talking about how she owned a shop and had a patron that would come in and try on women's clothing, and was pretty clear that, she was part of this person's sexual fantasy or whatever that they were playing out. And then what are they going to do afterwards? And that's, I
read a blog a few years ago of a Samaritans volunteer, and it was her experiences. And you went through and what a common one was men who were purporting to be women ringing up and saying they were so dysphoric and upset and sad and things. But she worked out by the end of the conversation they were using this to get off. But
they see those are the types of things that they don't talk about in like the therapy. Yeah, it's just and also really disappointed in the current therapy. Like here is there's no actual work to be done. They talk about it, but I mean,
it's a prescription.
Well, I'm thinking here, like my son has ADHD, and I know I can go and look stuff up on Mayo Clinic. It's like these are some different strategies you can do that are non-medical to deal with that. And it's like, why aren't you trying something along with it? And it just gets so frustrating that it's just this kind of, okay, we're just checking the boxes, going through. And that's what with some of these laws that makes therapy out to be, is it's just something you got to go through and check it off and say, okay, here's your letter. You can go get hormones.
If I were an 8-year-old girl in the state of California, as cocky as I was when I was 8 and a tomboy, and if I said that I wanted to be trans and get puberty blockers soon and start gearing my parents up, and I already for a year had been going to school, and my parents didn't know that I had the name Mike and I'm like the boy and all that, and then they said there's no way, we're not doing any of this, I could force my parents.
You could force them
into trouble. So now all of a sudden I'm the parent. I have no more parents anymore who are trying to do the better thing for me. All of a sudden now, at 8 years old, I can say that I want something medically that's going to affect me. They have no more say. The reasons that women decide to go this route are very different than the reasons that boys and men decide to go this route, right?
Yes.
But the girls must do it. You have to have girls doing it, or it's not a valid thing.
Yes,
it's
there's
not
a social
real.
thing.
If it's only boys, it's not real.
Yes, yes. And also the fact that it got into the white communities and captured the Caucasian communities first and middle class a lot until they could bring the costs down, the drug costs down a little bit more, even though they still are what they are, and get the insurance companies behind it. So they'll pay for in California now, no age limit on girls having their breasts removed. So that's why as low of an age, even before they passed that law, Kaiser Oakland, 12-year-old girl. And I think that, especially for you, Steve, coming into this so new, it's got to be so difficult to try to figure out, who do I pay attention to? What is going on here? It's already a whack-a-mole issue for everybody between the education, the job market, internet addiction, all of this stuff. We're just fighting it from a million angles, and then we have to get in and sort of focus. And you've got kids you're worried about. That's your focus,
Yeah, you can. I mean, it's definitely within the job market. I mean, you have to put now as part of like the hiring process, you have to have an EID or DEI type, whatever they want to call it, type statement. And it's basically kind of a litmus test.
Tell me what those stand for, those acronyms.
Diversity, equity, inclusion. Now I think it's actually, which I find a little, I don't know if it's ironic, but DEI is, Latin for God. So that's has to be for day. Yeah. If you go into academia, that's required. And I think they also, I don't know in terms of the private sector, what they're doing, but you need to say the right things in that. If you don't, it's a very easy way if they get a hint of something. And this is a cross. It used to just be kind of restricted more to the humanities, social sciences and things like that. It's everything. It's really tough. And that's and talking to you kind of beginning about this is it trying to struggle on how to go out and, have a voice and make an impact as far as, because people have to talk. You have to get this out because there hasn't been any. And I can tell you, like where I'm at, people are afraid. Even if they don't, even people that I know, people that don't have trans kids or anything like this in the family, but would like to speak out, but they don't dare speak out because I can tell you it has, it's happened. You see cases of it more and more, and I don't know, but I'm also the type of person that I have to speak out. I have to figure out how to do it. And because I can't morally myself, I can't live with myself at some point if I don't do something. Silence is consent in some ways, and it's just trying to get how to do that productively.
I worry that my son will be a person who speaks out. He talks all the time, and it's proselytizing.
Yeah.
He's got a religion and he's espousing its tenets and things like that. And he wants more people. I saw a Twitter handle of someone I think was local to me. And it was their little profile photo had, "Bring me your children. The ones I can't trans, I'll eat."
That's horrible.
They're still on Twitter.
Yeah. Well, my son is the same way. He is, and well, I'm also a pretty good talker, but he will talk and a little bit of the problem is, and we kind of question whether or not he might be a little bit on the autism type spectrum, that because it causes a little bit. He's highly functioning, and I don't think that's a cause, but it doesn't pick up on some of the social cues. And that, okay, maybe you need to change the topic, and people aren't really interested in that, and allow other people an opportunity to speak and listen.
So sort of a last question I have for you both is, we're now recording this in August of 2021. Where do you see your family being by the end of the year with this issue and just in general?
It's a good question. I think you go ahead, John.
I take each day as it comes a bit. Yeah. When my son is 18, he will have a lot more agency. And so there's a funny age between 16 and 18 where I'm sort of still his parent and sort of in some ways not. And he's tried on and failed some of the things where he tried to get into hospital and get the drugs, and bless Carabelle, he was unable to get them. I don't know, but the sad thing for me is the name change really hurts. Like, his name was important to me. And I only have one son, and I had these ideas for him. I mean, I'm from a poor family in another country, and to get him to this country and get him off to a nice private school where they do wonderful things, and to have him just blow up his life. He was an amazing singer, and he won't sing anymore because he's got a man's voice. He was in the choir at school. No, not anymore. He won prizes for singing, won't sing anymore.
Yeah. I kind of like you, like I say, we kind of take it, a day at a time, but like when Scott was here, I mean, this does just kind of consume you. I mean, I go to sleep thinking about it. My wife, when she gets stressed, she likes to clean, and our house has never been so clean. And it's just, and she says that it's just like, I have to do this because just to distract, to get something out. Yeah, I mean, my son is going to be starting a program as far as with school in the fall. I want to support and hope that they can keep going and hopefully get some success in that area, because I think that would help. That would be helpful. So, I mean, we're doing what we can do there. I mean, realistically, I think it's like a 50-50 shot, whether or not he just, maybe here this fall with the stress with that, he may just be moving out with his, glitter family that he's forming. And this is one thing kind of back at the other end, and we didn't really talk about this, but why are men don't seem to be as involved as women, as far as parents, in these different forums and speaking out? And just kind of say a little bit on that is that part of me, in some ways, moving out and becoming a little bit more of an adult may not be the worst case. I mean, like all of us, we want our kids to be able to move out, become successful, and we want that. But I wonder sometimes, I think that is that's maybe what some other, in the back of my mind, part of me would like him just to move out and just, so every day I come home, I'm dealing with it, and it makes me feel really bad. Yeah. I mean, it really does, because I love my son, but at the same time, it's like, part of this is eventually it's going to be his life. I mean, it is his life. And how do you start, that separation? And so I don't know. I mean, I'm hopeful that, get some success, find this and then figure out, more about, I'm gay, or this is just some other, type of distraction, and be able to focus his energy on things that it can be productive. But it's going to be a bumpy road, because I know from talking to different groups and, like with you, John and Scott, that, this is years, and I'm just, I'm like 8 months into it, and it's going to be years, and who knows?
I would like to see some more data from some of these parents who are getting together and talking. And well, if there's enough of them to get it, I know Angus Fox has done a lot of work. We now know that puberty blockers lead to transition. They lead to hormones. It goes on. A court case in the UK proved that. Yeah. So what is the next thing I want to know is, does social affirmation lead on to the medicalization? And I want that to be backed by data, because at the moment I have adults in his life who just think it's a kindness to call him what he wants.
Well, the attitude is if we don't affirm, they're going to commit suicide. That's what we're told. It's not good data. He constantly
tries that on with his mother, and he said to me one night after he'd sent her messages, he was at my house, sent her messages saying he was going to kill himself. And so she told me, all the razor blades, all the knives out, boom, 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 away. And then he wanted to have a shower, and he shaves himself completely when he has a shower. And he said, well, where's my razor blade? And I said, well, no, you've sent messages saying you're going to kill yourself. So but that's not real. That's all bullshit.
Yeah. It'd be nice to have some real data for everything in general, because let's keep it rational. Let's keep it evidence-based. A lot of people, they bring in, they say science, but there's really no science. And all these things, like I say, are experimental.
Yeah.
Right. You guys, if there's any final things you want to say other than that,
I'm fine now. I mean, it is one of those things. It is nice to be able to talk to people and share experiences, because I mean, you feel very alone. Just feel very alone.
It's a therapy call, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And you do learn. You do learn things in terms of different resources and stuff, and try to figure this out. But in some ways, it's a little ironic. I think sometimes our kids are looking to be part of a community, and that's we need to be humans, we need to be parts of communities. I mean, we're
Yeah.
driven to kind of that. And, but I do really appreciate what you're doing, Joey. And thank you to John for sharing your experiences.
I thank all the fathers who participated in this open conversation. Know that there are many parents just like these men who are struggling on a daily basis to understand and support their children, while also attempting to stop them from doing permanent damage. Every parent knows how this can become an emotional tightrope that can begin to feel like there is no good end in sight. But by sharing their stories and helping to create solutions with each other, many parents of children with rapid onset gender dysphoria are learning tools to combat this monster that has arrived at their doors. Please note in the description the resources that are listed that will go along with this project, as well as the pilot podcast with 5 mothers. This has been Joey Brite with Can I Get a Witness? And thank you for listening.